A woman enters a room in Nancy. She has already visited doctors. She has already swallowed medicines. She has already heard the sentence that crushes the spirit before the illness finishes the body. Nothing more can be done. The room is not grand. It is not a temple. It is not a secret society. It is a simple room crowded with ordinary people. The limping, the sleepless, the anxious, the exhausted, the ones who have carried pain for so long that pain has become part of their name. At the front stands a small Frenchman with bright eyes and the manner of a shopkeeper who has seen thousands of worried faces across a counter. He does not give her a miracle drug. He gives her a sentence. Every day, in every way, I am getting better and better. And then he gives her a string with 20 knots, so she can count the words in the dark. His name was Emile Coue. He was a pharmacist, and for a brief, strange moment in the early 20th century, people around the world believed this quiet man from France had discovered something medicine kept overlooking. Not a new chemical, not a hidden herb, not a machine, but the terrifying, healing, dangerous power of belief. Before he became a name, Coué stood behind a pharmacy counter in Troyes. A pharmacy is a strange theater. People enter carrying fear in small, invisible packages. They hand over a prescription, but what they really hand over is a question. Will this help me? A pharmacist sees what doctors sometimes miss. He sees the patient before the bottle, the patient after the bottle, the doubt in the eyes, the relief that begins before the medicine has time to act. Coué began to notice something. When he handed medicine to a customer with confidence, when he said it would help, when he wrote a small encouraging note, people often returned saying the remedy had worked better. The bottle mattered, but the idea around the bottle mattered too. Most pharmacists measured powders. Coué began measuring expectation. He did not yet have a doctrine. He had a counter, a line of customers, brown glass bottles, and a suspicion. Perhaps the mind was not merely watching the body suffer. Perhaps the mind was participating. Emile Coue was born in Troyes, France in 1857. He was not born into comfort. He was bright, and he wanted chemistry, but money decided the shape of his life before ambition could. His studies were cut short, and the dream of becoming a chemist had to bend into something more practical. Pharmacy became the compromise. It was chemistry made useful, chemistry with a counter, chemistry with sick people waiting on the other side of the glass. That compromise shaped him. He never became the grand laboratory scientist he might have imagined as a young man. Instead, he became something stranger, a chemist of expectation, a man who handled medicines long enough to ask whether a healing substance was only the powder inside the bottle, or also the belief carried into the body with it. To understand Coué, you have to enter Nancy. In the late 19th century, Nancy was not only a city, it was one of the centers of a psychological revolution. Doctors like Ambroise Auguste Liébal and Hippolyte Bernheim were studying hypnosis, suggestion, and the strange fact that words could alter symptoms, sensations, and even behavior. At the time, hypnosis carried a theatrical shadow. People imagined sleep, trance, domination, a powerful operator controlling a passive subject. Coué studied this world. He learned from it. But he gradually moved away from the image of the hypnotist as master. He came to a different conclusion. No suggestion works unless the person accepts it inside. The real hypnotist was not the man giving commands. The real hypnotist was the patient's own imagination. This changed everything. If the patient's own mind had to accept the suggestion, then healing did not need a magician. It needed a method. And if a method could be taught, then the poor did not need to keep returning to a specialist. They could carry the method home. Coué's discovery was almost embarrassingly simple. A person came for medicine. He gave the medicine, but he also gave assurance. This will do you good. The phrase was not decoration, it was part of the treatment. Sometimes he would add encouraging words to the label. Sometimes he would speak with such confidence that the customer borrowed his certainty. The patient left not only with a remedy, but with an expectation. An expectation is not nothing. A hopeless person takes medicine differently from a hopeful person. A frightened body listens differently from a reassured body. Pain, sleep, appetite, fatigue, digestion, trembling, breath. These are not simple machines isolated from meaning. Coué began to think that many people were unknowingly poisoning themselves with suggestion. I cannot sleep. I will get worse. Nothing helps me. This pain will never leave. To Coué, these were not harmless complaints. They were instructions repeated to the unconscious. If bad suggestion could make suffering heavier, then good suggestion might make healing easier. The pharmacy counter had become a classroom. Coué's most famous psychological idea was not positive thinking in the shallow sense. It was more disturbing. He believed that when the will and the imagination fight, imagination wins. He used simple examples. Put a plank on the ground, and almost anyone can walk across it. Raise the same plank high between two towers, and the body changes. The width has not changed. The wood has not changed. But imagination has entered the legs. A person tries to sleep by force, and the effort makes sleep flee. A forgotten name hides more stubbornly the harder we chase it. A cyclist tries desperately to avoid a stone, and somehow steers directly toward it. This was Coué's law of reversed effort. The more violently we try to force certain inner states, the more we may create the opposite. That is why he did not teach people to strain. He taught them to repeat gently. No heroic willpower, no clenched jaw, no commands screamed at the body. A sentence, spoken softly enough that the unconscious could accept it without resistance. The method became almost childlike. Every morning before rising, and every night after getting into bed, a person would close the eyes and repeat the same sentence 20 times. Every day, in every way, I am getting better and better. Not loudly, not dramatically, not while analyzing the illness. The point was not to argue with the disease. The point was to place a general direction into the mind. Better and better. The string with 20 knots mattered because it made the ritual mechanical. The fingers counted, so the mind did not have to. The words could pass through the ear, through repetition, through rhythm, through the half-dream state near sleep. This is why the method spread so easily. It needed no equipment. It needed no priest. It needed no doctor in the room. It needed no expensive medicine. It needed only a sentence, a body at rest, and enough confidence to repeat the sentence before doubt had time to interrupt. To supporters, this was liberation. To critics, it was absurdly simple. To Coué, that simplicity was the point. In 1910, Coué sold his pharmacy and moved fully into the work that had been growing around him. At Nancy, he and his wife helped run sessions that became famous across Europe. People came by the hundreds and thousands. Many were poor. Many were tired of being told they were beyond help. Many had physical illnesses, nervous troubles, phobias, pain, stammering, paralysis, insomnia, grief, or simply a life that had become unbearable. Coué did not present himself like a distant sage. Accounts describe a direct, good-natured, practical man. Sometimes almost too simple, sometimes repetitive, sometimes childlike in his insistence that the same small truth had to be said again and again until it entered the person. He would explain that the unconscious accepts ideas. He would demonstrate the power of imagination with small experiments. He would ask people to repeat. He would tell them not to force. The atmosphere was part clinic, part classroom, part revival meeting without religion. One person's improvement fed another person's hope. Hope became contagious. Suggestion moved through the room, not only from Coué to the patient, but from patient to patient. A room full of sick people began to imagine recovery together. That collective imagination may have been the strongest medicine in the room. Coué also had a smaller formula for pain: passe. It is passing. For a pain, a panic of sudden distress, he advised the person to close the eyes if possible. Pass a hand lightly over the painful area and repeat the phrase rapidly. Ça passe, ça passe, ça passe. The speed mattered. If the words came quickly enough, there was no room for the opposite idea to enter. The phrase did not say, "I will defeat this pain." It said something gentler and more slippery. It is already leaving. Whether we call it suggestion, distraction, expectation, self-hypnosis, or placebo, the ritual understood something about suffering. Pain becomes more powerful when attention circles it like a vulture. Coué tried to break that circle, not with force, with rhythm. The claims around Coué became extraordinary. Letters and reports described asthma easing, insomnia disappearing, stammering improving, pain fading, depression lifting, digestion returning, people walking better, people recovering courage, people who had been told they were incurable, feeling alive again. Some accounts went further into territory that modern medicine would treat with extreme caution: organic disease, tuberculosis, glaucoma, paralysis, tumors, internal disorders, conditions that no sentence should casually promise to cure. This is where the story becomes both powerful and dangerous. For the desperate, Coué represented the one thing medicine had not been able to give them: a way to participate in their own recovery. For skeptics, the testimonials proved very little. People improve for many reasons. Symptoms fluctuate. Some illnesses are misdiagnosed. Some cures are exaggerated. Some stories are repeated because they are beautiful, not because they are verified. But the emotional truth is still important. People did not flock to Nancy because they hated medicine. They flocked there because medicine had often failed to speak to the most frightened part of them. Coué spoke to that part. He told them the door was not closed. For someone in pain, that sentence alone can feel like oxygen. Then the little sentence escaped Nancy. It crossed into London. It crossed the Atlantic. It entered drawing rooms, newspapers, lecture halls, advertisements, songs, jokes, sermons, and shop windows. Every day, in every way, I am getting better and better. Some people repeated it with tears in their eyes. Some repeated it because everyone else was doing it. Some wore bracelets. Some bought books. Some mocked it as a silly slogan for people who wanted miracles without thought. In America, Coué became a sensation. Crowds came to hear the retired French pharmacist explain that the unconscious could be trained. Society figures supported him. Newspapers reported him. Humorists feasted on him. A healing method had become a fashion, and fashion is dangerous for any serious idea. Once a method becomes a craze, people stop hearing the method. They hear the noise around it. Coué's sentence was repeated so often that it almost became a joke. But even jokes can preserve a truth. 100 years later, the structure of that sentence still echoes through self-help, therapy language, coaching, affirmations, motivational culture, and the modern belief that our inner speech matters.